Good morning, everyone. With a quorum of members present and the posted time having arrived, I'll call the Capital Improvements Program Committee to order. Today is Monday, July 19th, 2021. Today marks the first of a series of meetings where our Capital Projects Committee will review proposals from within city departments and score and rank them based on priority. And that really is the public-facing beginning of our 2022 budget process. The departments and the mayor's office have been working on preliminary preparations for department budgets for a while now, but this really kicks off the committee processes that begin our budget prep. The recommendations that come from this committee will be sent to the Finance Committee and included in the 2022 budget for review. Each member, I guess we'll start off with just a few procedural things. Each member should have received a book like this. All the projects are outlined in the book. We'll hear presentations from each of the departments over today and tomorrow that are proposing new projects. Capital improvement projects involve new city spending, typically for things like facilities and equipment. And I believe to qualify for a capital projects request, the amount of that project has to exceed $25,000 normally. Each member has a scoring packet. At the end of the presentations, they will score the proposals based on a variety of criteria, including the public's perception of the need, the effect of delay, efficiency, improvements, environmental impacts. There's a whole host of screening criteria that they will rate on a 1 to 10 scale, and then we will review those scores and set some priorities based on our revenue projections at our third meeting on August 9th. So with that, we have one new member on our committee, so we should go around and do some quick introductions so that we all know one another. I'm Lisa Rasmussen. I'm the chairman of this committee, but I'm also the chairman of the Finance Committee and the Capital Improvements and Street Maintenance Committee for the city of Wausau. And so that kind of makes me a liaison between all of the other committees that try to put this stuff together for the budget, finance, and then also our infrastructure committee that deals with a tremendous backlog of infrastructure issues within our city limits. So I've been on the council since 2008 and love serving the community. So we'll move on then, and why don't we start with Mike? And we'll work our way around.
All right, good morning. I'm Michael Martins. I'm the alder for District 2 on Wausau's east side. Been on the council since 2018, I guess almost 4 years. So this has been on the CIP committee a couple times before, so this is always a fun experience.
We're up to you, Jim.
Up to me, Jim Wadinsky, Alder District 5. Good morning, everyone. I've been here for a short time. Learning quick, trying to get the best bang for my constituents with the money we have and give them the best service we can in a great city of Wausau.
Thank you.
My name's Carrie Merle, and
Oh, switch your mic on, Carrie. Could you please? There's a toggle switch right in front. There you go.
is that better?
Way better.
Okay. I'm Carrie Merle. This is my first ever time serving the city, although I've been a resident for 45 years. So I'm just excited to be a part of this. I'll probably do a lot of listening. I may have a few silly questions, but I'd really like to help.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Mr. Gale.
I'm Ed Gale. I'm currently sitting in a seat that I occupied for a number of years, but I've been on the CIP both as a council member and as a private citizen, which is what I'm serving as now at this time. So, and the only dumb question or silly question is the one that didn't get asked.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome back. Mary Ann.
Mary Ann Grote, I'm the finance director. Been working for the city for 20 plus years. I always find the CIP process a great process because you get to hear about all of the important projects. Certainly our facilities, our equipment are critical to how our departments serve the community, and deferral on those assets can be problematic, as you'll probably see as we go through the presentations. And I want to introduce Emily Lay. I don't know if you want to raise your hand. Emily is the Assistant Finance Director. She really worked on the CIP book and worked with the departments to help put all of the proposals together. And then Valerie Swanborg is also in the audience, and she's also in the finance department, an accountant. She used to do this work, so.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, and thank you for all the work that went into the assembly of the presentations that we'll see over the next 2 days. It's a bit of an exhaustive process, and it's a lot of work for our team to put together, but it's also important, I think, for the committee, for our council, and for the public to understand what municipal needs we have. And it really is it's a nice forward-facing public process. So, and now we actually this will be, I believe, the first year that we'll post these deliberations onto our website and live stream them over public access. So people who are interested in how we come about our budget process and how we prioritize the needs based on the community's priorities and the aging of equipment and facilities, can see how we get those processes complete. So what we'll do is we'll start with the first presentation, and I'll ask our presenters if they are, this room has a really odd layout. To me, this room feels a little bit like a courtroom, so I'll allow our presenters, if they are comfortable presenting from the podium, they're welcome to do that, but if we get a little more of a round table feel, if our presenters sit up here with us, then I would ask our presenters to sit over in my normal seat, over on the end at District 7. You'll have a microphone. And then we can speak to one another across the room like a round table, which is a little bit easier and a little less, just a little less daunting. So whichever you guys prefer. Our first presentation today is from Public Works, Engineering, and Maintenance. And Public Works always encompasses a lot of different disciplines. So we'll see a number of sections in our books are devoted to their department. So I think first we'll start with the director, Eric Lindman. Welcome.
Thank you. I'll come up here.
Perfect.
For those that don't know, my name is Eric Lindman. I'm the Director of Public Works and Utilities for the City of Wausau. I've worked in Wausau now for 6 years in this position. Looking into your packets for 2022, the department has several different divisions, streets maintenance, engineering, GIS, and water, sewer. And so the projects that we'll be looking at today, there's really 3 of them for 20 and 22. One of them is a phase project that goes from 22 into 23. And so that first one is the fleet facility, which potentially would include land acquisition, design, and construction costs. I'd like to give a little bit of history about the fleet facility. Our fleet, or our motor pool as it's typically called, manages the entire fleet for the city, all of the vehicles, equipment, heavy equipment, everything from fire department, police department, street plows, and everything that happens on the street and all the equipment with it. So over 500 pieces of equipment. Our current facility, or the shop, was built in the 60s. Has had very little updates to it during that period of time. And so the idea of having a new fleet or building a new fleet or updating that shop has been on the list probably for over 10 years in some form or another. And so over the past 3 years, the organization, we've looked at the organization from a personnel standpoint, and we've started to reorganize in a more of a modern type structure with our personnel. So we have included a fleet supervisor in the motor pool side. We have established what we need for mechanics to maintain the fleet that we have, and we've established that organization. And this past spring, we hired a consultant to do a fleet study for us. That was probably 6 to 7 month process from when they came on board. It was very extensive. It's included in your packet. They highlighted a lot of the things that we're doing. It seems like we're going in the right direction, but they've also highlighted a lot of items where we need to make significant improvements, both in the operation, how we change over our fleet, the age of our fleet, to the facilities that we work in. Right now, we're supposed to have a couple more mechanics on staff to manage the fleet that we have. We cannot hire those mechanics because we don't have anywhere to put them at this point. So really, we looked at the organization. I think we have that established, at least on paper, on what we need. With Mercury, who did the fleet study, that was very beneficial. Our next step right now is actually to build a new shop for our fleet, and where our mechanics and our motor pool personnel will work. And so it's a very large project, and it will greatly increase our efficiencies, as well as providing what's really important is service to our customers and their internal customers with all of the departments in the city. The project is proposed in 2 phases. For 22, we are asking for design and potential land acquisition costs. It's just over $1 million. Since this was put together, we're actually looking at 2 different sites. One is down by our current facility, which would require property acquisition because we need more space to put that new facility. The other one is actually at 1300 Cleveland, just off of Thomas Street. The city already owns that property. It's about a 6-acre piece of property. And we did find some money in the 21 budget to hire a consultant to lay out both of those sites to see which one would work best. And so that's in progress right now. I believe we should have something over the next 2 to 3 months before the budget process is finalized to determine the best location for the proposed facility. Ultimately, the council would have to decide, which property and what direction to go. But we'll prepare all that information and provide recommendations moving forward. How I see the project moving forward is that we would design the facility in 22, prepare all the plans, the bidding documents. If funding is approved at the end of 22, we would go out to bid. For 23 construction, it's proposed to be about a 7 to 8 month construction timeline. So it's proposed that it would be completed in 1 year and up and running by the end of that year. So we also have some representatives from the motor pool here in Streets Division if there are specific questions. And also if you have specific questions on the motor pool study and the fleet study that's in your packet as well for this particular project.
Where is it now?
It's down just off of Thomas Street, Myron, down on the southwest side. I don't know if you know where the wastewater treatment facility is, right next door to there. Yep.
Additional questions? Oh, go ahead, Mary Ann, and then Ed.
I was just going to add that the couple of things that the study revealed is, one, due to staffing shortages in the motor pool staff, we've fallen behind in replacement of our vehicles, which has resulted in increased operation costs because, of course, the maintenance increases as your fleet ages, and also that our expenses for maintenance are increasing because we're short mechanics, and so we're having to farm out some work that we would typically do internally, and we would be saving dollars if we were able to use that, do that work with our own staff. So the study revealed that, long-term, if we are able to upgrade the facility and hire the people that we actually need to hire, our ongoing maintenance costs of the fleet should decrease. So that was a positive.
Well, and you might recall seeing the fleet facility on last year's, for those of us that were on last year's committee, this was the first time that this discussion came up, and a facility for DPW scored highly, but we opted to hold on funding the request because we wanted to see the results of the study that Eric was describing. So now that we have that, we can make some educated decisions as a committee. Mr. Gale.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was going to bring up the thing that you just talked about, the fact that last year we had a facility
looked familiar.
request.
Yeah.
And the challenge I had with it, I know I scored it fairly high, but the challenge I have, Eric, is what we saw last year was based on 2017 numbers. There had been no adjustments for 2020 or 2021, 22, depending on what we could do. And that, to me, was kind of misleading on what the actual cost would be. So when I look at the projection here, I don't have a problem with any of the things that you've said. I don't have a problem with what Mary Ann said. But the question that chimes in my mind is, are these projected costs as of 2020, 2017, or are we projecting into the future, with our crystal ball saying it could, we could see a X dollar increase is my concern. And where are we? I mean, I'm not trying to nitpick you, I'm just, what are we doing?
No, it's a good question, Ed. These are firm costs, what we feel would be a 22, 23 construction timeline with these costs, yes. We worked with our consultant on these as well, to try to finalize on what would be a good budget number for us at this point in time. We'll finalize the construction estimates once we get into design, if it's funded for 22, yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that may be why these numbers seem like they're so high, because we all know what's happened with the cost of construction and materials. And, just recalling that for just over 5 million, we built Fire Station number 2 a couple years ago. And now we see that, there's an exponential increase. I mean, the site is laid out a little different, it's for a different purpose, but requires totally different equipment. But it's a way bigger number, and I think that's maybe partially reflective of current economics too,
Actually, the number is less than it was last year. They were projecting $17.5 million with no foresight of what the material cost could be or labor costs. And although I think I'm probably like a lot of other people, I scored the project high. There are definite benefits to it, but so I'm a little kind of, all of a sudden now we're at 13 million, so I guess this isn't the normal place to do this, but I would be interested at your convenience or somebody's convenience just to have somebody share with me the differences from last year's project to this year's. And then you have one more item coming up, which is, and I'll wait till then, or I may ask it now, it's on the office area that's being proposed now.
Oh, the office renovation?
You're right. May I
Okay.
ask a question about that, or should I wait till we?
Either, I guess. We haven't discussed it yet, so it might be more relevant for the public if they try to watch us on video.
Yeah.
If we pair your question with the material so that they can hear what we're talking about. Maybe if you can hang on to that one for just a second. Go
Oh,
ahead,
that's fine.
Eric, and then
Yeah.
Carrie.
Yeah, I think, just in general, to answer your question, the project that was proposed last year was actually like a 3-phase project, just because of space and a lot of demolition of existing buildings and stuff. And so when I was looking at unit costs based on that and talking with the consultant, we were able to take that back, assuming that this would be a 1-phase construction project. It wouldn't be phased over 2 or 3 years. And so, so I am comfortable with the budget number at $12.5 million. Yep,
Okay.
moving forward.
And the reason I asked the questions is, I didn't bring it with me, but I have last year's at home with all my marked
Yep.
up parts.
Yep.
And so I read this and then read those, and
Yeah.
so thank you for your comments.
Excellent. Carrie, go ahead.
That was pretty much what I was gonna say. Was
Okay.
last year kind of a, we're not sure number? And this year's we've done the consulting and we have a more firmed up idea of what,
Yeah, I mean, I think what we did based from last year,
not like it was a guess, but you know what I'm going for.
right, no, I do. And I think last year we were trying to fit, everything on the property that we had as well. And so it caused us to actually do demolition of buildings. It caused us, and so this year when we came back and looked at it, we were looking at it as far as, because this is a 50-plus year project, right? Like once it's built, these are the facilities that we're gonna be in, or they will be in for the next 50-plus years.
So it's
And
kind of like a smarter design now.
I believe it is, yeah, yep.
That was one good thing that came from the Mercury study, is they made some insightful changes or recommendations to the design that we were working off of last year. We had a preliminary design, but of course, the size of the vehicles they work on, they have to be able to get fire trucks in and out and things. And so they made some insightful changes for things like the entry and exit points and direction of travel, and to really maximize the usefulness of the building versus the Barrientos design that we saw last year too. So I was glad to see that when that study came out. Other CIP committee members, do you have any questions for Director Lindman? Okay. If not, we'll let him move on to his next project.
I guess I'll go to the DPW office remodel, since Ed had brought that up, and
Sure.
it might coincide with this. So right now, we have, part of the organizational change with the personnel is we have a fleet manager, and now we have a fleet supervisor who directly supervises the mechanics, and they both work in the same office. And I would say it's probably a 9-by-12 office or something like that. And so they can't, if they're both on the phone at the same time, or one is, on a virtual call or something like that, I mean, they can't be both in there at the same time, as well as when people are coming in and asking questions and they're having a meeting. It's just really tight. One always has to leave, so they're not efficient. They're not able to do work during certain events and when things are happening with either the manager or the supervisor. So what we're proposing on the facility is actually to do a renovation so that there will be two separate offices. This area will, regardless if a new facility is performed or not, this area will be used. So this is something, I think, in a renovation in the existing building would be very functional and beneficial in the future as well. The difference is that with the new facility, we're gonna be moving the majority, all of our motor pool staff and everything over into, they're gonna be a little bit separate, from the operators and the actual streets, which is a recommendation from the Mercury study as well, to have them separated. And then our street staff, our administration staff and everything down there would utilize these offices in this space, once the motor pool and staff get their own spaces with the new facility, so.
So the clerical and management function would remain down there once the new
That's
facility
correct.
is put up?
Yes.
Okay.
It would, yep.
Okay. Ed, go ahead with your question.
The question I have, Eric, is the cost of the remodel isn't terribly high.
Right.
So are we really getting what we need in that remodel? Are we getting enough electricity or enough extra space that we can get the electric in as we progress? That's one of the things that is happening in our society right now, as you know better than I, is that we use more electric than we've ever used before. I mean, if you go around Wausau, take a look at the amount of air conditioners, and they've tripled in the last 15 years, according to Hurtis. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know. But so as equipment comes in, are we looking at earth grounding to fight off the harmonics and battle the harmonics issues that take place when the office people are trying to work and you get people running scopes and resetting things? Are we set up to be able to expand when we do that? And then last but not least on that question, Eric, from my point of view is the cost of that, although in my mind it's minimal, is that in fact something that is part of the new facility sort of, if we do the remodel now, does that save us something we have to do in the new facility and we kind of save that money by doing it now and benefit from it? I don't know. I'm asking.
Yeah, I'll answer the last question first, Ed. So the last question is that right now, if we did the remodel, our current motor pool fleet supervisor and fleet manager would benefit until the new facility is built. Once the new facility is built, the motor pool personnel will enter, go to the new facility. And that area will be utilized by our current administration staff and clerical staff that are down at streets right now. Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as like the estimates and stuff, Dustin, I know you worked with getting those estimates and stuff. So as far as the, what structures and the details of that, Ed, with the additional electricity and those types of things, I can't answer those questions right now in detail. But, both of them will continue to be office. There's no additional plumbing work or anything. And so really it would, the lighting and things like that, but the HVAC system might need a little bit of work with it, but.
May I have one add-on comment?
Absolutely, sure.
I was on the council when we built the parking structure downtown.
Okay.
And one of the things that we did, which was very different, was we hired a firm to come in and help manage the safety, manage as directly as on from council to the contractor and back. And we were able to put a stop where if a council member showed up down there and said, oh, I thought that's supposed to be blue, and not getting a change order because it had to be approved by a specific manager that then was responsible to the council to ensure that we stayed on track and on budget, because I was down there several times when council members were walking through and we went, oh gee, I thought this, and I could just see the guy going cha-ching and starting to write, and the guy next to, the guy that I was with was our hired engineer, and he elbowed me and he goes, that's not changing, don't worry about it.
Okay.
So, a lot of times when people bid government projects, they bid with the hope that they're going to be able to get change orders. And of course, they don't worry about pinching pennies then. They give you or charge you the Cadillac version versus the Hugo version, shall we say.
So we're talking about a construction manager, basically?
I'm
hire-
just curious if that would not, as we start this process and we go through, that maybe somebody in your office or you is identified to our contractor and it simply said, anybody can walk in here and tell you they want this, including the mayor. But if I don't say so, it doesn't change and you don't get to do a change order and add money.
Didn't we do
And-
that, didn't we do that with the water facility and the firehouse?
Yeah, for the larger projects, like with the facility and stuff, we would have an engineer represent us. But anything that would increase costs or increase scope of project would be managed by the Board of Public Works as a formal approval process for that.
Yeah, but I've watched that happen before we did the parking structure, and I watched that same board approve things, not knowing who actually asked for the change.
Okay.
And I saw a couple projects get bumped $300,000-$400,000.
Okay.
And so when we did the larger project, we had a point person that had to sign off on the change order regardless, and I know that's not a word, without respect to who. And I don't know that, depending on your schedule or one of your folks' schedules, that that's not a bad idea, that council members can go down and look, the Board of Public Works can go down and look, and unless his name or her name appears on the sheet, it's not an official change order, and we don't incur those costs.
Okay.
I didn't know that we had picked up and actually used that since then. I've been off the council for a while, and, but that was a big change for us. And Linda Lawrence, bless her heart, went down several times and made comments. And then I was here for the Thursday afternoon meetings, and we found out that that isn't what she was looking for. She saw something, made a comment. Change order was submitted, and thank goodness
Okay.
the guy said, no, not until the council, and then even though his signature went on, the council actually ultimately had to approve that.
Okay.
So that seemed to be a little smoother transition, but
Sure.
how you manage it, sure.
Sure. Okay. Any additional questions about the office remodel at DPW? Okay. If not, we'll move on then to the next DPW project.
So the City Hall concrete repairs, over the last couple of years, we've been trying to do some repairs. We've done some ramp maintenance out front. We did some stair replacement out front. We still have some cracks out front. The one thing that we want to do is try to stay on top of those and get those repaired before they become trip hazards, because those are liabilities to the city if somebody gets hurt on the property or trip. The other highlighted projects are the egress stairs in the back. Those are for the emergency exit. Those are heavily deteriorated. They are a safety issue and they're not used right now. And then also there's some span creek out back and around the building that actually there's the basement underneath the concrete that's outside. And it's similar to our parking ramps where that decking gets sealed periodically so that water doesn't come through those decks. And right now, we have water coming through those decks out back, and it has been for quite a few years. There's not a lot of contractors that do it, but we do ramp repairs and stuff too, so we can consolidate and have those. I think it's important that those are on here and that we consider, that you consider moving those forward.
Is that all on the concrete repairs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Would those jobs be separate or would they be timed with ramp maintenance?
We hope that they'd be timed with ramp maintenance. We could combine them and bid them at the same time.
Sure.
And hopefully, because those contractors aren't necessarily local, we have one that's local, but then they're from outside too, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it seems like they're always, I mean, you can always find little spots in the ramp that need it too, so. Okay, committee members, any questions on City Hall concrete repairs? I know a number of us have already seen these areas, so these pictures are not unfamiliar.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you have next on your list, Eric? GIS? Is that,
I don't have anything else for 22, I don't think.
okay,
Please.
okay. All right, so anybody have any wrap-up questions on the projects that Eric outlined? Okay, thank you for that. Does anybody have questions for any of Eric's team members from Fleet and Motor Pool who helped in preparing the material? The Mercury study.
I guess I have a question.
Go ahead, Karen.
So assuming this all happens with the new fleet facility, what happens with the old facility?
We don't have a specific plan right now. Right now, is it 6 bays that you have, Dustin, down there? And so, right now, mostly it would be vehicle storage. We would take a look at how to renovate that, utilize that as possible. I don't know, Mark, if you've talked about that, if you want to come up for the microphone.
One of the things
Because the
that
new
we had
facility would be in a completely different area, right?
a few blocks away.
Yes, it would be
Okay.
completely different. But the current facility that we have, we're lacking in storage for vehicles. We have a lot of equipment that has to get parked outside. And one of the ideas here was if we separate the motor pool facility from everything else, the current shop area and offices could be used for storage. I mean, it's a smaller area, but we still would have some capabilities for storage. You know, that's kind of one of the proposals.
Okay, so that is still, the office remodel is in that piece,
Right,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Yep.
Well, and the
Sorry, I-
office and the shop down there are kind of almost like two separate buildings, but they're joined together. So one of the things that we've seen in our CIP plan for a while now is indoor storage for equipment that sits out now, like plow blades and dump boxes and things that are really, really expensive, but sit out in the rain and then, rust prematurely and whatnot. Would that equipment be able to move into some of those buildings?
Yes, some of that stuff would, because one of the things too is that we have a crane in that old shop right now that hopefully if it keeps working, the operators could use that for mounting wings and, different things like that. So we could repurpose some of those areas, make better use of that for storage of those pieces of equipment. So then we can free up some of the other areas for just plain cold storage.
That would actually be fantastic,
Yeah.
because we had been trying to find a way to fund some of that stuff for years, and it's never gotten to the top of the priority list, because we had other things that were, condition critical way faster. But it can't be underestimated, the value of the equipment that just sits out and is exposed to the elements 12 months of the year. And, that's been a common worry of the department, is we pay an awful lot of money for that stuff, and it's not living its full useful life because it's not properly stored in its off-season. So
Well, and I don't know if that's already a part of, I didn't read every single thing in this book, if that's already a part or that should be highlighted, but I think that's important. That it's another benefit.
Yep, I made a little scribble note on and you guys can write in these books and make whatever notes you want as well. I made a note in mine about that very point because having had seen the need for that, at least in the last 3 CIP cycles, and we've just not been able to get that to the top fast enough. So if that would be a ancillary effect of that facility finally
Yeah,
come
that's
into
huge.
fruition, we'd really knock out 2 needs with 1 project, so. Anyone else have questions at all for Mark or for Eric? If not, then we can conclude the DPW Public Works presentations. And our next presenter, we could start a little early, is Airport. And we have the Airport Manager, John Shamil, with us. And we'll welcome him. And so, John, if you're more comfortable presenting in a roundtable setting, John, right before you got here, I told our presenters that if they don't want to stand at the podium, which is kind of an awkward layout for this, if you want to take that seat that Eric just got up out of and have a roundtable discussion with us, we're good with that. So wherever you're most comfortable.
I don't mind standing as long as,
Okay.
hopefully, at least there's not a cross behind me that it can be hung on or
Right?
something.
No. No, we're a little more low-key than that.
All right, excellent. Okay, so just to review the projects that we're hoping for next year. Currently this year, the Bureau of Aeronautics has awarded the contract for engineering for 2 future projects to Becker Hoppy. And Becker Hoppy is working on both of those this year. One is for replacement of corporate hangar door 3, and the other one is for remodel and update the FBO terminal building at the airport. So they're working on that right now, and if you look at the estimates for those future projects, we've actually gotten some more specific numbers on the door project and much less specific numbers on the FBO project, and I'll explain that here in a moment. So all of the design is being done this year as awarded by the Bureau of Aeronautics with FAA money and partially ours. So next year, what we were hoping to get done was replacement of the corporate hangar door. And as those of you on the airport committee are aware, that has become an incredibly urgent project. I think it was last month or the month previous, we had a catastrophic failure of that door. That door is actuated using steel cables, and there are cables on the interior and the exterior of the building that operate the door. We had 3 successive exterior cables fail within moments of each other, which caused the door to sit cattywampus within the frame of the building. And it took us, I just have to say one thing. DPW and Mark Hansen specifically just bent over backwards to get this project done. And he needs, if I could give him $1 million right now, I would, because that door was sitting cattywampus, and it got taken down by the company that was doing it, but then we had to figure out what we were going to do because that hangar is very essential to the airport. Anyway, we were able to repair it, but everybody's intention on that was to repair it and give it a life long enough until we can replace the door, and we're really hoping that door gets replaced next year. This is not an emergency. It wasn't an emergency situation until 2 months ago. I just unfortunately underestimated the lifespan of the door by 6 months. So I'm praying that you guys give us the money for that hangar door next year. The terminal, and then in addition to that, because of that occurring, we were able to get more accurate numbers. And the number that I gave you as an estimate was $165,000. And in talking to Mark, we're really looking more at $185,000 on that door now. Keep in mind that the city will not be paying $185,000. We will be responsible for 5% of that project. With regard to the terminal building upgrades, the age of that building, it was born in 1955. It was used as a terminal building for many years and then as rental office space. And then in 1998, it was converted to its current purpose, which is the FBO building and the building that represents the city of Wausau when people fly in to do business here. And it served that purpose well, but it's time for some upgrades. And if any of you have gone into the building, or if you would like to come out and I can give you a tour of the building, you can see the things that really need to be upgraded. I don't think that it represents the city of Wausau like it used to, and we're a progressive, forward-moving and forward-thinking community. And I think we have to look at our airport as an off-ramp from the sky. So when people come to Wausau, this is the first thing they see, and we need to upgrade but the terminal is not just in need of cosmetic repair. There are other things that have to be considered as well. And now you see a huge range of what this project could cost. And Becker Hoppy's estimates for the upgrades that we want to do won't be figured out until later this year. And that's why I had to give you a huge range. The other thing is that we've been discussing with Bureau of Aeronautics where the FAA money would come from, and they're fairly confident that they can get us the money, even for the upper end of that figure. But we just don't know yet. So I can't, the worst case scenario is $1 million. Like I said, that wouldn't be all of ours, but I told you in the estimate what I think would be ours. It could vary anywhere from $50,000 to $650,000, depending on what's approved for that. Now, that's going to be a big project, and it may not be able to be completed in 1 year. So one of the things that I think the committee could consider is doing that project over a 2-summer period, because a lot of that work has to be completed in the summer. So that would be one way that raising the money could be deferred over a period of time. With the rest of the stuff, that's pretty self-explanatory. Concrete apron repairs. What we're trying to do is look at our pavements at the airport and see and prioritize which pavements need to be done first. City of Wausau and the FAA and Bureau have done a really good job maintaining the pavements that are out there. I think that we've gotten more life out of our pavements than almost any airport around. But it's time to pay the price for the age of our asphalts, and I actually think that we've timed it pretty well, because the federal government is looking at infrastructure, and rumor has it that these projects may actually be paid 100% by FAA, but we don't know that for sure yet. But I do know that that's what our representatives are pursuing, and hopefully that's the case. And if that is the case, then we would get the concrete and asphalt on the in 2023 on the apron. And then in 2024, we'd be looking at rehabilitation of runway 5 and 2-3. So that's not just crack sealing. That means we're going to grind it up and put new pavement on it. And during that period of time, it's appropriate for us to replace the lighting. Everything is condensate lighting in it right now. And almost all runway projects, when they're going in to replace runways, they're doing the lighting right away too, going to LEDs, and that's obviously would have a significant impact on our annual operating costs. Then 2024, we're looking at the taxiways, and then in 2025, the big project, which is replacing runway 13 and 31. One thing that the airport committee meeting, the most recent airport committee meeting has discussed is replacement of the oldest hangars, which is a project that right now we're discussing doing in 2026. And I kind of had to stick that in there at the last second. I'll have more information on that in the future, but those hangars were built in 1955. They've more than paid their price, but it's time for a whole new row. And so that's about all I got for you. Happy to answer questions if you got them.
Okay, so this year, for scoring purposes, we only need to score the 2 items that are marked 2022, terminal building upgrades and hangar door replacement. The other ones will be for future iterations of this committee to
That's
score.
correct. Yep.
Okay. And with regard to the local share, because we indicate that our local share is 5% of the total, So,
Okay, let's be clear on that. For the corporate hangar door, it will be 5%. But for the terminal building, it's going to depend on the work that's being done. Some of that is, qualifies as 5%, some of it's 30%, some of it doesn't qualify.
okay,
So that's why you see the range in our responsibility there.
okay. And so when you mentioned 2 phases on that particular project, were you thinking of maybe design and engineering the first year and then actual build out the second year?
So the
Or-
design and engineering is being done this year.
Okay,
And so construction or rehab would begin next year. What I was saying is we might be able to stretch the rehab out over 2 years because there's so much work that needs to be done.
the physical work
Correct.
over 2 years.
Yep.
So 2 borrowing cycles.
When does Becker Hoppy think they'll have their work completed?
I do not know that
Okay.
answer, but it will be before the end of this year because that's a 2021 project.
Okay.
Okay, committee members, questions for Airport Manager Schmiel? Jim?
I guess this is more for finance, you know, how many departments does the city have that actually has an income that helps offset the cost of operating that and has another payee to pay for improvements? I mean, I know the airport does because FAA pays or the government pays for some of that improvement and we have a portion of that, but
There aren't very many. Transit used
Transit.
to, the transit used to have federal capital dollars on a regular basis and have a long-term capital plan. Those dollars have kind of evaporated over time. They today now have CARES money or, from COVID, an allocation that they're using for their capital, but really they don't get capital money anymore. So really the airport is it, yeah. So we really do.
With the airport, if we can afford our share, we're really taking advantage of free money in the long
Right.
run.
And that really leads to the question, given that Becker Hoppy won't be done until late in the year, from a timing perspective, when we'll know what portion of the project budget is eligible for federal dollars. Do you have a timetable laid out on that? No.
I
Okay.
don't. I wish I did, but I don't.
And do you think that the feds will be inclined to have to wait until 2023 to
can-
start the project, or,
That wouldn't shock me.
okay,
It seems recently that not to sound like I'm complaining, but it's been harder and harder to do projects with FAA money efficiently. We used to be able to design one year, get the project done the next year. Now it's almost turned into a 3-year process. My only concern with saying that you'd like to defer into 2023 is that the FAA can change their mind and then our money wouldn't be there. So I would rather commit to 2022 and then carry it over to 2023 rather than say we're going to do half in 22 and half in 23.
Okay. Ed, go ahead.
John, I'm going to take you to 2026 real quick, the hangars.
Yes.
And I know I'm not ranking them, that's fine. What do we get now for revenue from renting those out?
Okay, so that is the lowest, because that hangar is the oldest and it has the least amenities, I think we rent those for like $93 a month, okay? And so, there's 10 units, so that's $930 a month times 12, okay? The good news is that hangar those hangar units have been here since 1955. So they've more than paid for themselves, but it's time. We're having some pretty serious door issues that we've had to put money into, and they're manual doors. So it's kind of like our low rent district, but I think we could maybe call them sub-low rent district now.
I guess what I was kind of rhetorical. I didn't see any information on the rental money when I went through this.
Okay.
And in the past, you've always been real good to tantalize us with, I'm asking you to do this, and the results is this, we're already getting this, like you just said. Those hangars have paid for themselves probably 4 or 5 times by now. And so the investment of taking the hangars down, putting the new hangars up, they're going to be good for 40 or 50 years. And guess what? They'll pay for themselves again. So it's like a business that's investing back in itself, in its capital. And I can recall a lot of stuff that you used to write, especially that you gave to me. I always had that stuff so I can go, oh yeah, okay, it makes sense to me.
Excellent critique. You know what, you're right, and I need to do a better job of that in the future, but I can quickly give that to you right now.
I think you did.
We
Sure,
obviously
sure.
wouldn't be charging the same rate for the new hangar that we would for the old.
yeah.
And I can tell you that there's great demand for T hangars at the airport, so having tenants will not be an issue. So you're right, they will absolutely pay for themselves. And I appreciate you bringing that up.
And one last comment, if I might.
Sure.
John, I've known you, what, 20-plus years by
I
now?
think so.
Give or take?
How could that
Mary
be?
Ann's got the same problem. She's known me for a long time, too. The reality is that your company that you represent has managed that facility for us very, very well over the last 20 years. And you've done a lot of very good things for us. So I think as people look at this, they should kind of keep that in the back of their mind, that you've never come here with your hand out. You've always had, this is what it's going to cost, but this is what I give you back.
Thank you for that. And we really have tried our best, and I have to tell you, in 2021, we've been there 29 years now, and we have never experienced business like we have right now. I mean, we just hired 2 more employees last week. Our company is double the size it was 4 years ago. The amount of business that we're doing is just absolutely incredible. I can hardly keep up with it. That's why my hair is so messed up, and it wasn't a fashion statement I was trying to make, but.
No, that's a fantastic problem to have. And so with that, we'll score the 22 projects. I know when we met at the airport committee, you had said that this door that we're talking about is the last door that's cable operated. And with airport hangar doors, basically, it's a matter of the entire side of a building opening and closing, so that's certainly no small process. But luckily, nobody was injured when those cables went, because it looked like it was pretty serious, so.
Or the multi-million-dollar airplanes
Or
inside.
the airplanes
were
inside,
damaged.
yeah, which,
Yeah, we had a jet in there, and we had another airplane. We probably had $15 million worth of airplanes in there, and 2 employees inside of it moving around when it failed. So it could have been really horrible.
Yeah.
The new door that we're going for, well, we're actually looking at options, but the one door that we have on all of our other hangars is operated by straps rather than cables. It's an incredibly safe and consistent method of handling a door, so I'm really looking forward to that. I'll be so happy when this door is gone.
okay. Anybody else have questions? Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I just have one quick one. I know one thing you didn't speak about today, and it was on the CIP request for last year, was the grass runway rehabilitation. And then you mentioned you were still pursuing private donations. Are you still on track with that?
We are completely on track with that. The ASOS got moved last year. The terrain where the old grass runway / the new grass runway is going to be, because it used to be a runway before the weather equipment got installed in there. Now the weather equipment was removed to another location for other reasons. So we had to do some modifications there to smooth it out. We just had Marathon Feed come over and do a soil sample. Our plan is to fertilize that and seed it this year. And the DPW's been helping with that, but I just had a private donation of the fertilizing and reseeding. That will happen this year. And that gentleman also stated that he's willing to consider the investment of a irrigation system as long as the city provides the water. We were hoping to provide the water from the lake, but looking at it closer, it looks like that probably isn't going to be an issue or able to be done feasibly. So we're probably going to be looking at taking it out of the water system.
Okay. All right. Additional questions? If not, we will then wrap up our presentation from airport. And we have our next presentations
Thank
actually
you.
are set for 11, which is transit. And transit director is not here yet, but we'll see if we can reach him and have him run over a little early.
Yeah, I sent him a email 15 minutes ago asking
Okay.
him to head over, but he didn't respond to my email.
He may be on his way. We can,
Sure.
yep, why don't we take a recess for maybe 15 minutes? And,
Yeah.
well, let's start with 10 minutes, and we'll see if the transit director gets here. We'll continue a little early.